Good afternoon. I'm Mike Muirhead, and I appreciate you taking the time to come by and visit with us today about the 10 basic steps that you need as a special needs caregiver. I am a certified special needs planner and have been in the financial services industry for about 25 years. I'm also owner and co-partner at Financial Partners here in Wichita Falls, but I also have a team of special needs planners that are also located in Dallas as a support group. And MassMutual, the company, has a special division for special needs families led by a special needs parent who is nationally known and sits on the board of the March of Dimes and Easter Seals and other national organizations. So our extensive training helps us to be well suited to be able to help you take care of your family. So today we're going to talk about the 10 basic steps that you need to be considering as a special needs caregiver. First thing that I have to do is to take just a moment and let you see these disclaimers. Basically, this is required as a part of our compliance department, just to let you know that there are tax issues and legal issues that we're going to be talking about today. I am not an attorney, and I did not sleep at a Holiday Inn last night. So, but we will be talking about laws and tax issues as they apply. However, when it comes to the final process, we will want to involve a licensed attorney as well as a tax attorney to be able to help us make decisions that will help you get on down the road to do the right thing for you and your family. So what is important to you as a caregiver? There are 10 things that we feel are basic steps that you need to take as far as caring for your child. When we went through our training, probably one of the most impactful statements that I remember from that several weeks of training is the fact that each special needs parent wakes up every day with a single goal, and that is to live one day longer than their special needs child. And the reason for that is because nobody is going to love that child or care for that child the way that you do. Yet the idea of that is fairly unrealistic in most cases, and the idea of preparing financially for another generation beyond your own life is completely daunting. So we are here to help you try and guide you through that process today. So my question is to you, a few questions. First thing is, what are you not thinking about that you should be thinking about? You know, one of the things that we know through our training is that special needs families and caregivers, the parents generally wake up every day with their hair on fire. You've got enough to take care of every day just to be able to get through the day. So a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. In fact, there are 3 areas of thought that has been told. There are the things that you know that you know. There are the things that you know that you don't know. But then there's a very large category of the things that you don't know that you don't know. And maybe today we're going to uncover some of those things that you should be thinking about that maybe not yet have crossed your mind, or you've thought, you know, that's something I need to take care of in the future, and hopefully today will be a catalyst to help you move forward on that. Today, this particular presentation is dealing with college students who are going to be leaving the college area and going out into the world, as it says. So the second question I have for you today is, what are those challenges that lie ahead of you, and what should you be thinking about? So when we consider what you've already been doing for your special needs child, you take care of the medical treatment, you've been responsible for the education, and you've been responsible for their housing. And in some cases, that will not change regardless of how old your child gets. In fact, we want you to start thinking about a longer vision of what is going to be needed for your child and for that dependent with special needs. We want to help you develop a financial strategy, an emotional strategy to be able to support them long term. So the questions are they going to need weekly or daily medical treatments? Are there therapies that they're going to need? Are there appointments that they are going to need? Who is going to get them to and from their appointments? Will it continue to be you, or will it be them being able to take some of these responsibilities on their own? What about medications? Who is going to be responsible for making sure they take the medications the way they have been and should continue to do so? What about living arrangements? Have they been living at the home? Have they been living in the university? Will they be able to adapt to a group setting? And if so, what are those individualistic questions that we need to ask? Are they going to be able to adapt to a group setting? Will they be able to interact with people with other disabilities other than their own? Second question is, what are the availabilities? Are they available in the near or surrounding areas here in Wichita Falls? And then, of course, there's always the looming question that we think we need to address for all issues, and that is, what is it going to cost? How are we going to be able to financially support that? Are they going to be able to do partial work, or are they going to be able to hold a full-time job? These are questions that we need to be considering as adult caregivers. If they're not able to adapt to a group setting, are they going to be able to live at home? Now, some children may have been living at home even while they've been at the university. Will they continue to be living at home? If so, if that's an option, what are the impacts on the family? What are the impacts on you as parents? What are the impacts on siblings? These are things that need to be considered long term, especially as your child then gets into what is considered young adult stages of life. It's important that you review the beneficiary designations on all documents and investment accounts that have the ability to have a beneficiary arrangement. As you already know, children with special needs cannot have more than $2,000 in list as their own personal assets. Otherwise, they run the risk of being discontinued off of certain government programs, and we don't want them to be disqualified. Now, obviously, ABLE accounts are something that are new for special needs families, and they certainly have their place and can be utilized and have the ability to contain far more than $2,000. We have a particular presentation on ABLE accounts, and so we're not going to get into those here today. But if that's something that you would like to know more about, you can certainly see me afterwards. So, $2,000. That can be in any form, by the way. It doesn't necessarily just have to be in cash. They cannot have any kind of assets that are more valued than $2,000. So that would be things like cars. That would be things like cash. It would be things like jewelry. All of that combined cannot be worth more than $2,000. Otherwise, you run the risk of discontinuing and disqualifying yourself from governmental benefits. You need to make sure that you check with all of your family and friends with regards to this very same issue. There are family members likely and friends in your circle that would really like to do something to benefit your special needs child's situation. However, you need to caution them not to be able to list the individual child as the beneficiary of any type of asset. Again, you're not in control. You're in control of your own assets, but you're not necessarily in control of the assets that the other family members and friends might do. So make sure that they don't do that, and we will talk to you about, if they want to be able to help, how they could be able to do that and still not disqualify your children from the governmental benefits. The best way to do that is with a special needs trust, and we are going to discuss that later on in this presentation. One of the reasons that we don't want to disqualify them from the governmental benefits, well, the most obvious reason is that sometimes those benefits are absolutely critical to be able to maintain the current lifestyle and therapies that you're already providing for their child. The other reason we don't want to disqualify, because some of those programs have waiting lists. And once you disqualify yourself from those waiting lists, you have to get back on the waiting list, and some of those are years in the making. So we want to make sure that we don't leave anything directly to the child to disqualify them from benefits. We think it's important for you to have a family meeting with regards to future planning for your child. Caring for a dependent with special needs is a family affair, and so is the related planning. With the thoughts that you have facilitated your dependent's special needs throughout their life, You need to meet with family members to discuss the concerns that you have and what the options are for the future. Now, it's important that you don't assume that your special needs siblings will want to be able to take care of the special needs member after you're gone. That's a heavy, heavy assumption. There are some siblings that actually will tell you outright they do not want that responsibility. They have witnessed the costs and the burdens that you have already experienced as a special needs caregiver, and they just feel that's beyond their scope, and it's not fair that they should be saddled, so to speak, with that responsibility. It's not a black eye on the child. It's just they're telling you that they don't necessarily want that particular responsibility. However, you may have siblings or other family members that willingly, they want that responsibility. They've fallen in love with that special needs member, and they want to be that person that fills the role that you're already filling for that person. I think that it's important that when you do have these family meetings that you talk about these issues more in depth than just saying, yes, I would like to take on that responsibility. There are several factors that any sibling would want to consider. First of all, are the financial aspects. They're going to be taking on the burden of anything that is cost related to caring for that special needs dependent. That would be housing, it would be therapies, it would be medications and things of that nature. So that's the first thing that we need to talk to them about. We also need to have them consider the emotional needs. This is going to have a cost, the same as the cost that you've been paying all of these years if you've been caring for the special needs member. They're going to have these same emotional struggles that sometimes occur with special needs family members. Physical needs. Sometimes special needs members get larger and more and stronger than the sibling that might be willing to take care of them. And so these are things that need to be considered. And then I also ask my families to consider one other thing. If the sibling or your child is willing to take on a special needs family member, that is a monumental decision, and it is heartfelt and it's heartwarming. But they are not the only person that will be impacted. If that child is married, the impact is going to spread to their spouse and to their children. And so it's something that should not be taken lightly and should be discussed at length. And so we think that having a family planning meeting is critically important. We also think that you shouldn't make these decisions in a vacuum. We think that creating a team is obviously very, very important. So we think that you should have a financial professional, such as someone in my area. We believe that having a special needs attorney is also very important. All attorneys are able to devise what are called special needs third-party trusts. However, there are certain attorneys in our area, and we have identified them, that have actually gone through enough advanced training to be able to be certain, we are certain, that they would be able to craft a third-party trust that would be all-encompassing, cover all of the areas necessary for the special needs dependent, and to be able to make sure that the assets held inside this trust would not disqualify the child from the benefits. We also think that you need to have the additional of a health professional and a guidance counselor, and we believe that having at least one meeting with all of these parties present is very, very important, so that everyone is on the same page and has a very good idea, not only physically but legally and emotionally, what needs to be done to help support this child going forward. There are additional resources that could also benefit, including in addition to the team, and that is local nonprofits and governmental agencies that specialize in these types of situations that can also add additional insights and round out your team and actually add some great benefit. The governmental benefits that we generally talk about, the two most common, other than the additional programs that are offered through the state, the federal benefits are Medicaid and SSI. These may help provide for your dependents' needs in the future in the form of medical treatments, supplies, and financial assistance and more. And it's important that you visit your local Social Security office to be able to find out more about this. Now, Obviously, we are now in this presentation, we're talking about young people who are getting ready to exit the college area. Many times we would prefer families come to us before the child is in the high school area, so that we can start preparing you for the eventualities that they are going to face going forward. Particularly by age 16, we would like to see family members so that we can start talking about the ability to qualify for what is called SSI or SSDI in some cases. And that is that when your child became 18 years old, they separated you for planning purposes and for calculations for governmental benefits. They separated from you financially. So they stand solely on their own income, solely on their own assets. And generally, these children don't have any assets, so they are able to qualify for that SSI benefit, currently approximately $750 per month. So what we try and do is to counsel you as parents is what is the best use of that asset coming in. In fact, when your child turns 18 years old, you can legally charge them rent if they're living in your own home. You can charge them that rent, and by doing so, that allows you to take control of the asset and possibly do something that would be far more reaching to benefit the child in the future, again, particularly after you're gone. So the question is that what should we use that $750 for? Well, the first thing that you would be tempted to do is say, listen, I can now, that's $750 that I get back into my budget, $750 to pay for therapies, to pay for medications, to go for appointments, to gas treatments to and from the doctor and things of that nature. And certainly that would be something that most family members would say that would be a good use of your money. However, we're, again, trying to make you think a little bit longer term than that. And so the question is, should I start putting that money into a special needs trust? That way it's not an asset of the child, and yet we're putting it into a vehicle that will certainly benefit them and be able to help pay for benefits in the future that the government subsidies are not going to pay for. So that might be equestrian therapies. That may be able to buy a new computer every other year. That may be able to allow you to have some respite care, let them go on to some type of special needs camps and things of those nature. The things that governmental benefits are not going to cover, those are the things that we could get money out of a special needs trust. However, with the very first question that I posed to you when we began the presentation today, most special needs caregiver parents want to live one day longer than their child. If that's not going to be the case, what is the best use of that money? We believe that being able to leverage that money with things like life insurance benefits are a brilliant way to be able to provide for that child in the future. Now think about it. Your responsibility, if you didn't have your special needs child, your responsibility would be to be able to acquire assets and save for retirement so that one day you'd be able to retire and spend all of those assets that you saved. You're probably not having, there's not enough cash flow to be able to do that right now. So you're talking about planning for your own future 40, 50, 60 years in advance. We think that that same type of thinking needs to be considered when you're talking about providing for this special needs child. Thinking about providing for another full generation of assets, that is absolutely daunting. So if we took those SSI benefits and put them in the third-party trust, the unfortunate reality is that we cannot save your way to prosperity, and we certainly cannot save enough, even at $750 a month, cannot save enough to go for another 30, 40, or 50 years. So we think that using a portion of that money to be able to do other investments such as insurance and things of that nature are a great way for you to be able to live a larger lifestyle right now and not have to worry about saving quite so much, because we know that we'll have the benefit in the future to be able to provide for that special needs child. Certainly that's something that we could talk about on an individual basis. I should stop for just a moment and say that I do understand, we do understand, that each family's situation is individualistic. Some children are going to be able to function well on their own. Some are already functioning well on their own. Some will be able to do group housing, some will not. And certainly in the planning process, the things that we're talking about today, some of you may have already started this process. And so this is old hat or maybe covering old ground once again. But everyone is somewhere in this process. we're trying to make sure that you don't step on any landmines or hit any road bumps along the way. We think that it's important that you do proper will planning for yourself. When I have meetings like this, I will ask everybody in the room, how many of you have a will? And generally, sadly, the number of people who have a will is very limited. It's something that in my line of work, as I work with families on a day-to-day basis, they always say, that's something I can do tomorrow. And unfortunately, that's true. It can always be done tomorrow. But the problem is that tomorrow doesn't come quite often, and in the blink of an eye, it's 4 or 5 years of saying, I can do that tomorrow. So we certainly think that you ought to have a will. But back to my question is, I will ask people in the room, how many of you have a will? And it doesn't matter how many people raise their hands, because the answer to that question is, in the state of Texas, everyone has a will. Because if you die intestate, that is without a will, if you die intestate in the state of Texas will apply the will that applies to your particular situation. And they have several. They have wills for children for families with all minor children. They have wills for people with all age majority children. So the bottom line is that you have a will, but the question is do you want the state to be able to making those decisions for you? And I think the answer to that question is not. And just as a side note, this is outside the scope of special needs planning, but there's no extra charge for this. There are 4 additional documents that come with having a good will. Most people think that will is the direction for the disposition of assets, and in general it is. You want to be able to let everyone know what you want to have done with that life work that you've accumulated over your lifetime. But there are 4 additional documents that I think are really important. The first of which is a power of attorney. The power of attorney allows for someone, whomever you might designate, to be able to go ahead and make financial decisions on your part. So for instance, if you become incapacitated and need some type of experimental or emergency benefit that's not being covered by insurance, then someone who has power of attorney could take the opportunity to possibly sell a car or access your 401k or do whatever they need to do if you are incapacitated to be able to make sure that you get the care that you need. So a power of attorney is a very powerful and important document that we think you should have. Closely related to that is the medical power of attorney. That is someone who is going to make those medical decisions that are not covered under your medical durable power of attorney, your living will, which is the next document. So this is the person that anything that is not covered under your living will document, they're going to make those medical decisions. It's a difficult position to serve, but it is definitely necessary. Which brings me to the living will, and that is, it is a document that basically you have laid out the scenarios that you want to have is for your end-of-life care. How far should we go to sustain your life? If you're in a vegetative state, do you want to be kept on life support and things of that nature? So that's a really important document. And the last is a HIPAA release form. Today's medical information has become extremely secure, and hospitals are unwilling to share medical information with anyone other than a spouse without a written document. In the instance of my wife and myself, we have signed HIPAA release forms for both of our daughters so that the hospitals legally can provide medical information to them should something happen to one of us and we become incapacitated, or happen to both of us. Anyway, back to the original slide that we're talking about here. We believe that everyone should have a will. We think that it should be reviewed if you already have one. If you don't, we think that you should acquire one, and again, we can provide you with referrals to qualified estate planning attorneys as well as special needs planning attorneys as well. These wills should be updated periodically. Again, I can call on my 25 years of experience, and I will ask my clients to bring in a copy of their will, and for the most part, clients will tell me they've done the wills within the last 5 to 10 years, and often we find out that the last time they did their will was when their first child was born, and that was 30 some odd years ago, and none of the tenets of the will actually continue to be applied. And again, getting a special needs attorney to acquire their insights would be also very beneficial. So we come now to the area of what's called a special needs trust. Special needs trust is the asset that we create. It's the entity that we create in order to be able to hold assets for a special needs person. So how does it protect your dependent government benefit eligibility? I'll give you just a very short primer on third-party trust, or just trust in general. A trust is an entity that's created. It's not a living entity, but it is an official entity that's created to be able to hold assets. And so it is owned by the trustee of the trust. So instead of leaving money directly to a special needs child or putting it into an account for them, putting money into a special needs trust allows money to be accumulated in a vehicle that will not disqualify them from governmental benefits into the future. So it's a separate entity with a separate trustee. The trustee has sole discretion on when to distribute money from that trust. They are also in charge generally of making the investment decisions on what's inside the trust. And the reason that it doesn't disqualify your beneficiary or your dependent from governmental benefits is because it's not an asset that they own. What can it provide? It can provide the assets to be able to do those extracurricular activities that I discussed earlier, such as camps, additional therapies, excursions, getaways, computers, things of that nature that would add high quality of life to your special needs dependent and yet would not be covered under governmental benefits or governmental aid, or certainly is well beyond the ability of those particular programs to cover the cost of such items. And are there restrictions? There are restrictions. Again, the dependent child can have no evidence of ownership, and how those assets are used are somewhat restrictive, but we can certainly walk you through that in a private meeting. Next comes step number 9 is the guardianship or conservatorship question. This is a very large decision. The courts in recent years have not been willing to carte blanche, take away rights of special needs children. I would say that 20 years ago, you could go and get a guardianship without a great deal of problem. However, these guardianships are certainly not awarded easily in these days. So the issue is that previously guardianships were an all or nothing situation. However, in today's legal world, we can have individualized guardianships. So if your child is able to take care of themselves in every aspect, but just simply do not understand the concepts of money, what things cost, and what is are fair prices for things, then you can go to a judge and get a financial guardianship for the child. The same was with the health care. If they are unable to self-medicate, unwilling to take their medications, unwilling to go to therapies, you can go to the courts and get a health care guardianship. The questions are deeper if the child depended on whether they were over or under 18 years old. The questions are different and the standards are different. Again, we would advise that you get with a qualified special needs or estate planning attorney to be able to walk through the maze of those legal questions. So, have you identified a caregiver? How do you assure the kind of special care that you would personally give to your dependent? We talked about this in an earlier slide at length with regards to who you would name as that guardian and the awesome responsibilities. So I don't think that I will revisit all of those issues there, but getting someone identified and named in a legal document is incredibly important, and it's a step that we think that all special needs caregivers should take. Letter of intent. This is probably one of the most heartwarming things that we do in our approach to helping special needs families prepare for their caregivers. I want you to think for just a moment about all of the things that you know about your special needs dependent. All those little idiosyncrasies, the little things that really make the difference between whether they're going to get through the day easily or if there's going to be some type of emotional train wreck. Let's talk about family members that they really, really love. Talk about those family members that really do things that antagonize or irritate your special needs child. What are those therapies that that work? And what are the ones that you've tried that were really, again, a train wreck? There are not thousands, there are millions of bits of information that you know intimately about your special needs dependent. We have developed a document that is extensive, and it is a lot of work to complete the first time. But the special needs families that I serve tell me that this may be one of the things that relieves their mind of burden and of stress more than anything else that we do outside of doing the things that are planning for financially. This is called a letter of intent. Now, it's not a legal document. There's nothing binding about it. It's not created by an attorney, but it actually is created by you, the special needs caregiver. And I say that there are millions of bits of information that you know. As much as we can cover inside a living document, we have covered those things, and I believe that once we send it to you, you will see that we have left no stone unturned when it comes to talking about those items that someone needs to know in case something happens to you or you're out of town for the weekend. What are those steps that need to be taken to get your special needs dependent back balanced and in a good place? I've provided these documents to my clients, and I make sure that once they get them filled out, that every year that we go back and relook at it. Now, it is an editable Word document, so that makes it easy, and I always have them provide me a copy of that in case there is a situation where they need that document, they're traveling, I can email it anywhere in the world, or if there's another family member that needs to take over because of some type of disaster with the caregiver, that they can step in at a moment's notice and be able to know what medications, what doctors, what appointments, what are the favorite foods, what is their bedtime routine, anything that would that you know, but that other people would not know but would need to know in your absence. So this is, as I have worked with my families, this may be one of the most heartwarming things that we do, and certainly I can provide you with the opportunity to have access to that. So how do you start the planning process? Well, the first thing is that just get started. You've already taken one step, and that's by coming to this presentation today. So I hope that at this point in time there are things that you know now that you didn't know before. Maybe there's some things that we have shed a little bit more light on that might have been in the shadows before, but certainly we hope that we have opened the door. But we believe that the first thing that you need to do is to build your team, starting with your special needs estate and planning attorneys. And we also think that you should have a financial professional that can help you coordinate what you need to do to be able to not only provide for you today, but to be able to provide for that next generation. I will give you just one example of probably the best example that I've had with working with special needs families. I had a family here in Wichita Falls that came to me, and they have a special needs son. And when they first came to me, their plan was to continue to save as aggressively as they could and to live as skinny in retirement as they possibly could so that they could leave as much as they possibly could to their special needs son. They didn't have a special needs trust, so they would have left the money to the son, and it would have disqualified him from all of his governmental benefits. And so we would have, when you disqualify yourself from all the governmental benefits, what you have to do is to spend all of those assets down to zero before you can get started back on. So we would have wasted a lifetime of scrimping and saving and living skinny in retirement. And at the end of our planning process, which took several months to do, but at the end of our planning process, we had they had updated wills, they had a special needs trust in place, and we had developed a plan using some insurance products to where they were able to guilt-free spend all of the assets that they had decided that they had set back with the intention of leaving it to their son. They had the freedom, if they wanted to be able to spend all of those assets creating new memories, taking trips, and having great times with their son, knowing that when we lose them, we have now created another asset that will be able to replace all of the money that they had spent with those special times and trips and things of that nature. And when we got finished with the planning, Mom broke down and said, "This may be the best day of my life." And being as the marshmallow that I am, I was in tears as well. So it's very, very heartwarming, the work that we do, and we can help you do the same type of work. So the question is how can MassMutual help? As I mentioned to you, we have a large team of special needs planners. They are located all across the country. Again, my group, I am located here in Wichita Falls, but I'm associated with a larger group in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, consummate professionals that can help with financial planning, investments, and insurance. We can introduce you to nonprofit partnerships that we know that can provide you with additional goods and services that would be extremely valuable to you at no cost. We can introduce you to special needs attorneys that we have identified that have done that advanced training that could provide the document that you need. And we have a wide variety of special need trust funding options that includes insurance. We also do investments and things of that nature to help provide you with a comprehensive plan. And although not listed on this slide, the life plan is something that we highly encourage that you take advantage of and do for your family. In summary, we are here to help you. We hope to become a valuable and trusted asset. We hope to be that person that you turn to when you don't know who to turn to, that we can help you try and find the answers that you need for the special and individualistic situations that you find yourself in. Again, I greatly appreciate you taking your time today to come and visit and see our presentation. We have 9 other presentations that are specifically designed to teach you more about guardianships, more about certain financial steps that you need to take. We have a presentation on able accounts and things of that nature. So we have a lot of resources that are available to you, more flyers and brochures that you could possibly ever consume in a lifetime, and we're willing and be able to help you, and we hope that you will. Again, I thank you for your time.
Well, we do have some time for questions, and the first question that has come up: how many students use your services?
At the current time, that's a hard question to answer, basically because we work with the families, but we do have several families that have worked with us here in the Wichita Falls area, and dozens, if not hundreds, around the state of Texas.
Another question: how have services changed regarding COVID-19?
COVID-19 obviously has had a great impact on everyone, regardless of what kind of business they're in. But fortunately for us, our business is well suited to do things via the internet and via Zoom conferences. So we have done a number of group conferences, such as the one that we're participating in right now via Zoom, but we have also done the same type of conference with individual families. So we can meet individually or in groups via Zoom over the internet, and communication is actually quite easy in that respect.
Okay. Someone is asking, what kind of cost are you looking at for the initial consultation with a financial consultant?
Every financial consultant gets to make that decision on their own practice. For me personally, there is no cost whatsoever for the first consultation. I feel like I want to serve families in this community, and the best way to do that is to be able to have that first initial meeting, find out exactly what's going on with the family, not only financially, but emotionally, where they are in the planning process, if they've started at all. for me to lay out the types of things that we can do for them. And then from that point forward, we can determine whether or not there will be any charges for the services going forward. But the initial consultation, there is no service. And I will also say that if there is ever going to be a charge, the family will know well in advance as to what that would be and what they would get for those fees.
Does the program offer both academic and social activities? I don't know if that's pertinent to you.
I wouldn't say that it necessarily applies to me, but I would say that it, academically, if we had to say something, I think it provides a massive amount of educational information for the parents who come and talk to us about what we do. We are able to help coach parents through difficult issues such as whether or not guardianship should be applied for, as you saw in the presentation. Also, how to and the benefits of having a third-party trust. We talk about getting on the waivers program. So I would say that there are tremendous educational opportunities, although they're not necessarily academic educational opportunities.
Okay. What sets your organization apart from other organizations?
Well, I firmly say that the accreditation that we have received that is supported by the American College, which is the official and probably leading educator and entity that provides designations for people in the financial services area. We have several members on my team that literally do have the special needs consultant accreditation from the American College. So we've had a significant amount of education in this particular area, and it goes well beyond just the financial aspects that we primarily focus on. But the fact of the matter is to be able to help families understand that financial aspect, we actually needed to know what goes on emotionally and those emotional issues. And we've been trained extensively with regards to that. So, and we also have been trained with how the special needs member could, should, and possibly will interact with other family members and how that impacts them, especially since we're talking about planning for another full generation beyond the lives of the parents or the primary caregivers. So we set ourselves apart because we care and we are specifically trained in this area, not just in financial planning.
Awesome. We have one more question. That is, if no other questions come through, what family support services are available?
Again, it's not necessarily a question that actually applies directly to our particular situation, but I think almost related to the answer that I just previously gave, we try and help families sort through whether or not the siblings that are in the family would be suitable as future caregivers. We also help them to work through the questions of whether or not they actually would like to be future caregivers. I don't think that it is fair to siblings of special needs members to assume that they need to take on those roles. Some are not emotionally suited to do so, or not willing to put forth the effort that it takes for those types of, it's a big ask, quite frankly. So we feel like that we understand that. And beyond that, we do have relationships in this area of caregivers and providers that we can refer to that would be able to provide additional services to the families. We want to let everyone know that while we feel like that we are a one-stop location with regards to extensive long-term planning, both legally, tax, and financially, we also know that we are not the entire answer. There are other professionals that we have relationships with that we can relate and refer to be able to provide those areas that we don't cover individually or specifically.
Mike, before we close, is there anything else you would like to add on for our panelists and attendees. We have about 3 more minutes to go, sir.
Well, I'll never forego the opportunity to speak. So I'll just say this, is that probably the most difficult thing in my business in general, just in financial planning, is that everything that we talk about can always be done tomorrow. And nobody wakes up every day and says, I've got to get that done today. Today is the day I've got to do that. So will planning and financial planning and retirement planning, it all seems like it can be done tomorrow. I would say that the most important thing is that don't just take the information that you just got in the presentation and set it aside. It's only good if you take the information and do something with it. So we hope to be a catalyst in helping our clients and our families move forward with getting some things done, getting things in place. The worst time to try and plan is after we've had an emotional event or we've lost someone in the family and we think, oh, now we really need to get that done. You'll make hasty and unwise decisions in that time. So what we would like to just say is just no matter where you are in the process, if you've not started anything, if you've done a couple of things, but you think you should do more, whatever the case may be, is that it's move forward, get started, do something to help start putting meat on the skeleton, so to say. Last but not least, I would probably say, as I mentioned in the chat, that life planning document is available as a fillable document. It's probably one of the most important things a family member could do to help prepare other family members or other caregivers to take their place in case something were to happen, or if they just need respite care for the weekend. So having that life planning document is super important. We're here to help. We think we provide a really valuable service, and we would love to help anyone that feels like they could use our services to make that plan for that next generation.
I beg your pardon. I do see a question there which has been answered. It was, how can your office be contacted? And we had a screenshot with Mike's contact information, his email address and his telephone number. And I thank you for attending the Financial Partners session. Each session is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube page after the event. Thank you.